Yo and hello everybody. It's another Sunday night, which that means it's another episode of Beyond Cardboard where we get together and talk about and learn from a guest, a fellow YouTuber that you can learn a lot more about than just watching their videos, although that's a great way to get to know people. So right now I'm watching an auction that's ending in like 2 minutes. So I'm really wanting to win this card. So as we all do, let's see. Oh, see, I'm already outbid. What the heck? Let me try again. Okay, winning. Y'all ever have that where you're like bidding on a card and you're last minute, you want to make sure you win it? And I'm probably not going to win this, but I'd really like to. It ends in 1 minute and 6 seconds, so that's when we'll kind of get started with the show. Hope everybody had a great weekend. The weather here was gorgeous, so just a lot of good to be outside and play some golf. Yesterday was not so nice, but really looking forward to this week. It should be just, again, very pretty weather, so hoping to get out a few times. Make sure as we go along that you're asking questions. I'll be happy to answer those and would love to write them down and ask them of our guest tonight. And then he'll be back in a minute. I think he had to run and grab something, but I got 20 seconds left on my auction. Let's see what happens. 15 seconds. Let's see. And it should end at like exactly 7 o'clock, which is when we're going to start the show. So, let's see. Am I going to win? I won. I'm a winner. Oh, that was a big one because that was a card for my post-war Hall of Fame rookie set, and I don't have many of those left. And this one's one that was one that just tends to always go for a crap ton of money. So I'm glad to have it. But it is 7 o'clock, and so that means we're going to get going here. Welcome everybody to the 6th episode of Beyond Cardboard. My name is Mike. I'm a baseball collector, and this is just a show where we spend some time asking questions. I get to talk to a fellow YouTuber, and hopefully you get to know them a little bit more than just what you see on their channel. Just an opportunity for us to get to know each other better, and I love it, and I think everybody's really enjoying it. I appreciate the feedback y'all give me on the show, and so without further ado, let me introduce our guest tonight. He is a guy that is into everything in the hobby and does a whole lot for that, which we will talk about ad nauseum here. Let me introduce to you MikeO. Mike, what's up?
What's going on, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Man, you're welcome. You're usually the guy on the other end of this. You're doing your podcasts, which are just fantastic. I love the one you just did with Michael Fabian. You're usually the guy doing the interviews. How does it feel to be actually the one on the other side?
It's a little different. You lose a little bit of that control that you have when you're taking the lead with it. But should be fun.
We will have a good time. I'm excited to ask you some questions, get to know you a little bit, and let everybody else get to know you a little bit better too. So again, like I said at the intro, you are into so many parts of the hobby. Let me try to see if I can get all this right. You do TTM autographs. You do Allen and Ginter autographs. You do box breaks. You do PSA group submissions. You do modern. You do Tops Now. You do all sorts of stuff. How do you keep track of all of it? How do you deal with so many things going on?
I don't know. I think I have a problem. I think it's been established that, and I think Nate kind of led me onto this. I think it's time to fully admit I'm a baseball card junkie. I'm a hobby junkie. I'm a baseball collector junkie, which is your name, but it's a lot, and it's a lot to keep up with. But what can I say? I do enjoy it all. I enjoy all aspects of the hobby, so it's hard for me to kind of give up anything. So kind of try and do a little bit of everything as best I can.
Well, you do a great job with all the stuff, and you have a tremendous impact on the hobby. You were inducted into the inaugural class of the YouTube Hall of Fame. Congratulations, by the way. Well-deserved honor for that. Everybody, I mean, you got the most votes of anybody. And how did that make you feel when you found that out?
It was interesting. You know, I knew I was getting a lot of support as your contest went on, which obviously that contest was amazing. It was a great idea. It was well executed. Obviously, it really struck a chord with the community because you got not just a little bit of participation, you got a tremendous amount of participation, both in comments and video responses. So to be mentioned so much was, it does make you feel good. It makes you realize, people are out there watching and people appreciate it. So I appreciate the support I've gotten from everyone. And I appreciate all the kind words that so many said. And
Absolutely.
I congratulate you and everyone else who, reached so much support too. And I look forward to future years.
Will be
fun. Really fun for a long time.
That's right. They don't have to vote for us next year. We're already in, right? So and there's so many great channels, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But let's go back to kind of how you got started collecting. How old were you when you got started?
I guess I was about 7 years old or so. So I've told the story a few times over the years on my channel, but so back, it was a birthday party, and a friend of mine randomly gave a few packs of 1989 Topps cards. So I got those, and I followed the Phillies a little bit. Obviously, when you're 6 and 7, you know what you know. I guess around then is when you're kind of picking up on more stuff. So was into the Phillies and going to baseball games and all of that, but not really into cards. And just was opening the cards later that night with my dad, and he was telling me all about the players and stuff like that. And we didn't really ask for a lot growing up, but this was like one of those times where you'd work up the courage to be like, hey, do you think we can get some more of these? Because it was just so much fun. And that's pretty much where it started. So I started collecting with my dad back then, and pretty much have collected something straight through. Took a few breaks from cards themselves for short periods of times, but it was always something. If it wasn't cards, it was autographs. If it wasn't autographs, it was the old starting lineups. It's been something consistently for more than 25 years now.
Yeah.
28 years, something like that.
Does it feel weird? You know, I started in 81, but the junk wax era came soon after my start. You started right in the middle of the junk wax era. Does that bother you? Do you feel like that's a stigma on the hobby?
No, it doesn't bother me in particular. I mean, it's just, sometimes it baffles me how they made so much, because there was so much open back then, and everyone seemed to collect, and yet there's still pallets upon pallets of that stuff available. But I think it does. I think it makes it kind of fun, actually, that I can go back and buy a box of 89 Topps for $3, $4, $5. Like $5 to me isn't even a bargain. I've seen them cheaper, and you can open them for fun and then just give the box of cards away. You're not going to get much of value, but you can kind of have those nostalgic memories without spending much. So it has that bad stigma as this stuff's junk, but to me it's nostalgic and it's still fun. So it doesn't have to have incredible value. There's plenty of other stuff to spend all your money on.
For sure. So who are your favorite teams and players kind of as you were growing up and now? And
well, I'm a baseball, football guy. Baseball first for sure. Was never much into basketball or hockey. It's one of those deals where the Flyers and Sixers, hey, if they go to the finals, I'll jump on the bandwagon, I'll go out, go to the bar with some friends, watch it and enjoy it. But if they pick up and move to Los Angeles, I'm going to shrug my shoulders. I don't care. So baseball and football-wise, though, I am a Phillies fan, which I'm sure anyone who's ever watched my channel for even a minute knows, and they're probably sick of hearing about the Phillies or seeing Phillies cards, but grew up on the Phillies, and my entire family really were all Phillies fans, so grew up on them and have always collected them. And as far as football, I get a lot of crap for it here in the Philadelphia area. Grew up a New England Patriots fan, starting basically in 1993, and they weren't great those first few years, but obviously in the last 17, 18 years, they've been on a roll. This year was not fun being in this city and having those Super Bowl results. But
well,
that's what it is. And the funny thing is, I just kind of became, so my dad's not, he was always into baseball and kind of was the influence for me and my siblings. Football, never paid attention to football. So for some random reason, me and my brothers all just got into different teams. No real explanation why. One of my brothers is a Bills fan. The only one who's an Eagles fan moved down to the Baltimore area, or Washington, D.C., so he's in, like, Redskins territory. So that's just the way it worked out.
So do you dislike the Eagles, or are you just kind of neutral on the Eagles, or what?
There's ups and downs. There's times where you can't stand him, and there's times where you're neutral. Like, this year, the team was a good story, and I like Nick Foles. I would just like to have seen that happen in, a different year. There are times, though, if you want to listen to sports talk radio and you want to hear some baseball talk because the Phillies are playing well, and you hear people talking about training camp or talking about a 6th-round draft pick where you're kind of like, all right, I've had enough of this. But, other than that, they just kind of exist. They're just another NFL team. You probably dislike them more than me because I'm pretty sure you're star on the helmet type of guy.
I would pretty much rather see anyone else win than the Eagles, the Redskins, or the Giants. So I vehemently hate those teams. So that's just being a Cowboys fan. It doesn't mean I dislike the people or anything. It's just I can't stand to see them win. But good for them. It is what it is. Next question about, I guess, the Phillies. It's funny this year, a week into the season, everybody wanted to kill and hang and lynch Gabe Kapler, and now the Phillies.
Correction, that was after, it was more like after game 1.
It's like,
he got off to his roughest start as I've ever seen, I think, at least from a manager. He had a kind of a rough game 1, and I think it was game 4 where he went and made a pitching change without having anyone warming up. So it was a little rough, but things have certainly turned around since then. And now everyone wants to give him a 15-year extension and put him, in the Hall of Fame. So that's kind of the way it rolls.
It's what have you done for me lately, right? Let's get back to a little cardboard stuff. What is your favorite set of all time?
Favorite set of all time? Well, I talk about 89 Topps because that's the first pack. So I do love that design. And not just that set. I love when they've made Topps Archives cards with modern-day players in those cards. I kind of loosely put together that entire set. So I would say that, and 1993 Finest is another favorite of mine. I love the design of those cards, and they've done similar things where they kind of reuse those designs for inserts or parallels or whatever, and the 93 Finest, I think, are just beautiful, specifically if they have that early 90s shine. Absolutely stunning looking cards. But I like, it's hard to have one favorite. See, there you go with me right there. I can't even pick a favorite. I love vintage stuff too. I like 57 Topps for some reason. And you just picked up a few. Yeah,
I'm working on the 57 Topps Hall of Famers. What aren't you working on one set right now or something? You don't do a whole lot of sets, but do you do any of them?
I mean, I have some old sets from my childhood, the 89 Topps. I was putting together 88 Topps as a kid. So I will put together some sets from time to time. But what I've been working on recently is, it finally dawned on me, I'm like, I have a bunch of Phillies team sets. Why don't I have all of them? So I've been working on a binder project now at this point for a couple years, which I originally intended on completing much faster. And I kind of consider it the all-time Topps Phillies team set. So I'm more or less going 52 Topps through the current release. And I'm getting close, so I'm excited to complete it. And then what I'm looking forward to that is actually sharing it with friends and family and just kind of showing off and showing how cards have evolved, the designs have evolved from year to year, the teams have evolved. And I think it'll be nice to see different generations of fans kind of, see their eyes light up when they see certain players. And eventually I'll have a very long YouTube video for everyone else to share too.
I actually love that idea. I have I tried to get a bunch of Rangers team sets, trying to do the same thing. I only have to go back to 72 though, thank goodness. But I just think that's a great idea.
If you're like a Marlins fan or Tampa Bay, like you can do that
pretty cheaply,
cheap.
Yeah.
And like you're in a good position too with the Rangers. I mean, if you're a Yankees fan, unless you win, the lottery, you're probably in trouble with the Yankees. But
right.
I would say most teams you can probably find a way to do it, or at least come close.
Yeah, and it gives you a spectrum of cards over the year. I just think it's a great idea. So that's very cool. Is there a niche, because you're into so many things, Mike, is there a niche of the market or of the hobby that you wish you could get in that you never did?
I mean, I certainly wish I would have started on some vintage stuff earlier. I mean, I do have some, but it's very limited. And it's not that I don't want to collect it, but you just get so involved in so many other things. It's hard to go, okay, I want to get started on this part of the hobby. That is incredible. That is awesome. That is historical baseball-wise, historical card-wise, but comes with, a more hefty price than some of the new stuff. And that doesn't mean you can't do it, but at some point I will start some sort of vintage project because I would really like to enhance that portion of my collection for sure. And it would have been really cool to start that maybe back in, 1990, back when they were a little more affordable.
When you could get a Mantle card for a couple grand, right? What would you say is your dream item, Mike? If you could have one thing, what would it be?
So I am baseball oriented for the most part, but I do collect football. And I think the thing that always bugs me, and it's something that I wish I had, is some of those super high-end Tom Brady rookies. Because I end up nowadays with so much New England stuff, because that's more or less what I collect football-wise, other than a few select cards I'll pick up from time to time. And I look back, and they were so obtainable, and you realize now you're like, and I'm not just talking about the ones that are $400 and $800. I'm talking about refractors and autographs that legitimately go for $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. And I think to myself, I'm like, how did I not end up with one of them? Because
right.
I have so many autographs with so many players. Just like, why not? And like I remember when he was drafted, and his first game I remember watching, he threw 3 passes in his rookie year 2000 on Thanksgiving Day against the Lions, because I remember getting up from Thanksgiving dinner, walking in and watching. I was watching the game, but I got up during his series, and well, that was a missed opportunity. So that would be a dream item.
What's funny is, you never, who would have known? I mean, good grief, to know that Brady stuff would go that bonkers for a guy who's still playing, or at least we think he's going to play again. Just so I can explain to everybody, I'm having, first of all, MikeO is our guest tonight. Let me recap that. Write in your questions. Unfortunately, my iPad, which is what's filming me now, is not working. So I've got it playing over here on my computer, and I'm kind of watching the chat over here. So I'm trying to get some questions that I can ask Mike during our session when we talk about questions from the audience. So do that. Keep writing them. I'll keep looking over here. It's not a disrespect to Mike. It's a fact that I'm trying to keep up with what you guys are commenting because it's not showing up in front of me. So sorry about that, Mike. But back to some questions. So you're a Phillies guy. If you could have a beer with one player, sit down and just have a nice chat with one player, past or present, who would it be? Or maybe a couple of players, not to be just one. Would it be like Richie Ashburn? Would it be Richie Ashburn, or I don't know?
There's so many, because one of my first thoughts was actually Charlie Manuel. I think would be incredible. I mean, I know a lot of people out there who don't follow the Phillies probably just think he's, redneck mumbling buffoon, but the dude knows so much about baseball, and he can tell you probably so many stories. He was obviously the manager of the 08 team. I think you could sit there and 3 hours would pass by and you wouldn't even open your mouth. You would just sip a beer or 2 or 3 and listen to baseball stories going back. So I think that would be great. But then I start thinking announcer-wise, and I think the duo of Richie Ashburn and Harry Kalas would be incredible, and obviously Richie Ashburn, a Hall of Fame player as well. So
right.
I don't think you could go wrong either way.
There'd be a few to choose from, right?
No doubt.
How many ballparks have you been to? Being a baseball guy, I know you love the game just in general, besides just the Phillies. So have you been to a lot of ballparks?
I've been to a few. I've been to 23 of the current ballparks, 27 in total when you factor in the old Yankee Stadium, old Shea, Veterans Stadium, and RFK, if you consider that a baseball stadium, because the Nationals did play there for a few years. No disrespect to any Nationals fans out there, but that stadium sucked.
Well, if they played a game there, it's a major league stadium. Period. Paragraph. 23. That's a lot, actually. So what are the 7 that you haven't been to?
So the 7 I haven't been to, they are Seattle. I've not been to San Fran/Oakland, which I really want to go to San Francisco. And Oakland, I just want to kind of go to cross it off the list.
Right.
And then Detroit, I was outside of Detroit back. I was actually at the Super Bowl when it was at Ford Field, and walked right across the street and kind of looked in the stadium, but I did not make it inside. Obviously, the season was not going on. And then I need to go to Atlanta, which has a strong possibility of happening this year, and then Miami and Tampa. I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, that's all 7.
Have you been to Texas, obviously?
I have. I was in Texas, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, maybe.
Okay. Well, you didn't know me then. That's all right.
I did not.
If you come back,
right by you and not known.
If you come back, I'll happily host you. We can go have some fun. What's your favorite ballpark? You've been to a lot, so what's your favorite one?
That's the question everyone always asks me, and I never have a definitive answer because I like most of them. There's been very few that I'm like, yeah. But, Petco Park is a beautiful ballpark. The stadium is wonderful. The weather is virtually always incredible. The surrounding area of the ballpark is awesome. My only problem with that stadium is that it hosts the Padres, and hey, the Padres have some history to them, but let's be honest, they have not been one of the more exciting teams for the last several decades.
Right.
And the fan base is kind of like, we're out here having a good time, it's beautiful weather, but you don't feel that passion like you do on the East Coast, or, not just East Coast, but other areas. But Petco Park's up there. I thought St. Louis was awesome. I like Kauffman Stadium. I thought was really, really cool and had a different feel to it. So, I like Citizens Bank Park a lot too. And I know that's a homer pick, but the feeling there in 08 during the World Series was unbelievable. But my problem with that one, the thing that knocks that down the peg a little bit, is its location, which is great for kind of getting in and out. But it'd be a lot nicer if it was right next to the city. So that's, they all have a thing. But I think Pittsburgh's actually right up there too. The view, if you sit behind home plate in the upper level, there might not be a better view of all the stadiums. Now, I haven't been to San Francisco, and I'm sure that's incredible. But Pittsburgh, you feel like you can sit out there and just pick up the building. Like, the view of the city, the bridges, the river is unbelievable. And obviously they've had some decent teams over the last few years. I was there when they weren't so good, but
yeah, somebody said Petco, or for the Padres, Tony Gwynn's the history of the Padres, and I totally agree. Although that is my favorite ballpark.
You got Trevor Hoffman, so
that's true. But Petco is my favorite. It's the prettiest ballpark you'll ever go to, and it's San Diego, for crying out loud. It's gorgeous. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and kind of start talking about your YouTube channel, because you have an incredibly popular channel. I bet everyone watching right now is subscribed to you, and if you're not, you should be. How did you kind of get started in YouTube?
I was watching YouTube for quite a while, and I'd watch a variety of different stuff. And I actually, way back in college, I have shouldn't even say it, but there's some really bad old projects on there, like at the very beginning. So like they were up there years before I ever posted anything else. But honestly, one of the guys who I believe is in here, Mr. Wesker Griff, it wasn't just him, but there were others that somehow I guess most people that end up on YouTube, you start searching stuff, and I don't know how I came across TTM stuff again. And I was watching stuff, and I remember I actually sent Ed a message, and I think I asked him a question about a TTM thing or something, and next thing you know, I start doing that stuff, and I start making some TTM videos, and then I did a few of those vintage box breaks, and then a few years later, I'm like, well, I've made a lot of videos. I guess there's no point of stopping anytime soon.
Right. Well, you do a great job, just a huge variety of things on your channel. Can you tell us kind of where MikeO, obviously Mike is your first name, O is the first letter of your last name. So how come you didn't come up with something more creative than MikeO?
Yes. I'm MikeO. I just became MikeO. So, I mean, I'm sure you have gotten this a lot being a Mike. There's a lot of people out there named Mike. So basically, first of all, I grew up, my dad had the same name, different middle name, so not a junior, but so I was never Michael. I was always Little Michael or Michael T or Michael, it was always younger Michael. It was always something. Then you get out, you go to school. None of my teachers could ever pronounce my last name, so I'm like,
right.
All right, well, I thought you guys were supposed to be smart growing up. And then, you get into the workforce, and then there's everyone else named Mike, so just start getting called MikeO, and I went with MikeO. So now I am forever known as MikeO.
There you go. You are forever known as MikeO, especially in our community. Are there other YouTubers that you kind of admire and look up to, or who else do you really just think a lot of, I guess, in this community?
I mean, in this community, there's just so many, and I'll forget to name a ton of them, but just as channels evolve and channels change, and you see people's hobbies and even their channels grow, so there's a ton of them out there for sure. I mean, I can name a ton of people like Nolan Alico 3. I mean, I watch a lot of his stuff, and a lot of his stuff is similar to what I've done already and what I do, but you're kind of like, oh, well, that's an idea to
right.
do a little bit as well. And I mean, I got along with Mike over at Eastern Connecticut Sports Cards right away, and so many out there, Nate, Tops 85 401, and now I watch your stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea for this or that. Everyone's gotten me into the slab stuff. I wasn't even really into the grading stuff until the last couple of years, so that was definitely YouTube influenced for sure.
Me too, actually. And everyone you said, and of course the community is getting bigger and bigger. It seems like a really cool time to be in the community to me. There's just a lot of cool people doing some kind of groundbreaking, neat stuff. Are there any kind of new YouTubers that you are watching?
I mean, I've heard so many mentioned in the last few weeks, and I'm definitely on board with all of them. I've been following Up North Collectors a lot. They break boxes to father-son duo. I actually just recently did a little pack war thing with them and Pepino Man.
I saw that. That was cool.
We each got some complimentary packs, so I was kind of like, well, we kind of discussed how to do it, but I really enjoy their channel. Just to hear the interaction of the father-son duo, I think is, that alone. Plus, you can learn a little bit about some products and stuff too. So they've been around for, I don't know, at this point it might be 6 months, but I've certainly enjoyed them. Bowman 53, as someone who's always been into photography and video stuff, I love some of those videos. Just they're a minute long, minute and a half, and you're just seeing the beautiful shots of the cards.
Right.
When he adds in the really good sound, whether it's the music or even some announcing, some of the play-by-play stuff, it's just incredible. So I enjoy that. Passion for Cards has been doing a lot of stuff lately. love his 5-star stuff and his Phillies things. So, I mean, there's so many more I can mention, but there's certainly, like you said, a really fun time to be in this community and new people, fresh blood. It's really cool. And I think it was you who was mentioning a few weeks ago, a lot of people are doing, really nice work, not only showing off really good stuff, but taking time to make their videos. And that's not essential. Obviously, the content itself and the presentation is number one, but when you have a little higher quality camera, or you take the time to do a little bit of editing, even if it's a minor amount, that certainly enhances the experience a little bit. It's been nice to see a lot of that as of late.
Well, we just got a question from Ray Nids, and I'm going to insert it here just because I think it's appropriate for what we're talking about. But he's asking about what advice do you have for someone thinking of dipping their foot into the YouTube pool and making videos?
Just start making videos. Start doing it, and don't be try not to be shy. Like, I understand when you first start, it can feel like a little overwhelming and a little nervous. People, not everyone's real comfortable talking in front of the camera. But I think you just have to start making things, and you'll evolve from there. You'll pick things up. Like, you shouldn't feel obligated to do editing or do a whole ton of work. Just share your collection, and your channel will grow. And don't get discouraged, because it can take a while. It can take years to get a big following. It's going to take a while. And also keep in mind that 99% of the people in this community are awesome people, and you're going to get a lot of support. You're going to get a few people out there who get thrills out of being professional trolls, but that's part of the game. You deal with it. Some people, just think of it this way: there's some people who just sit there all day. They sit there all day waiting for your video to pop up, and they're more excited than anyone to hit that thumbs down, and they get a thrill out of it. So make their day.
Give them a video.
Just laugh it up.
Yeah, it's it's almost every.
I've gotten some of the most interesting comments ever, and I just troll them right back and laugh it off. Like,
sure. Because you're going to get mostly support, and the ones that, and I would tell we get this question darn near every week. It's kind of funny on this show, because I'm mostly talking to guys that are, or not just guys, but I am talking to guys that are doing an amazing job and are YouTube Hall of Famers. I've only talked to them so far. I'm going to start doing this show hopefully I'll keep doing it every week and be able to talk to some of the newer people so they can give some good advice. So it's a great question, and I think that people just need to start making content and
just make content and be active and
be yourself.
Show other channels support too. Don't just go around, begging
for subs.
Can I have a sub, or can I have a shout out?
Right.
Shout out for shout out. It's like first of all, dude, I don't know who you are. Like, you've got one video and you've been around for 3 days. Like, relax. Like, you make enough content, eventually people will get around to finding you. That doesn't mean you can't, phrase things in a proper way. People have done that, and then I'll check out their channels. You have an enlightening comment and you say, hey, just started making videos, I'll probably check out your channel. But if you just sit there and go, yo, I've asked for a shout out 40 times, can I have one? And it's like, well, no, the answer's still no.
Right. I don't mind doing the same thing, checking out a channel, but I don't like the begging. Let's move beyond cardboard, beyond YouTube a little bit, and we'll ask some more personal questions. I know, Mike, you just love getting personal. So,
Oh, yeah.
So you're a Philly guy now. Did you always grow up in Philly? Were you born there?
Yeah, I was born just outside of Philadelphia and grew up in the Northeast for a number of years. Then, at a fairly early age, moved to the suburbs and been in and around Philadelphia basically the whole time.
Okay. So what kind of jobs have you had over your life? You've had probably a pretty interesting career. I know you did some cool stuff in sports. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I worked for a sports newswire service for a decade, and that was a lot of fun for sure. a lot of people would always be like, "Oh man, that's like the best job ever." I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd say best job ever, but it certainly allowed for some really cool opportunities. And also, working in sports isn't necessarily a good thing unless you're a fan of all four sports. So when I was working there, the summer was wonderful. Every night you going in covering a baseball game. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, occasionally the 10 p.m. Eastern time Padres game that went 20 innings could be aggravating.
Right.
But, you know, you're following baseball. But what I learned was once it was like NBA season and you're covering NBA games that you could not possibly care less about, I was like, now I know what my mom felt like when she had to endure a baseball game. So it was, that was really a thrill. I got to go down to games, meet players. I could tell some stories that people would find semi-weird, I guess. But, you know, that's up to you.
What's your weirdest story? Let's do one weird story.
All right, so, like, you're in the press box, and every now and then you have to use the bathroom.
Right.
So you could be standing at the urinal, minding your business, and then you hear someone, you're like, I recognize that person. You look over, and you're like, oh, I'm currently urinating right next to Harry Callis, who is the Hall of Fame broadcaster. So that kind of stuff's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of weird. I guess some people are probably like, what is going on? But, I mean, it's a true story.
Just don't look down. Don't look down.
No. Don't look down or to the side.
That's right. Okay, I'm trying to get some questions here that I'm going to be accumulating for you. Tell us about your family a little bit. I know your dad was a big influence on your hobby as you grew up, and even now. You grew up in a big house, right? Bunch of kids?
I did. I'm actually the oldest of 6 children, so it was
wow.
It was always fun to grow up and never alone, always someone to hang out with and do stuff with. So it was definitely really fun, you know. I'm sure there's downsides too, and you know, sometimes might get a few fisticuffs, but overall, really everyone got along. So it's been really fun, and then you grow up, and obviously, you know, as you get older, I don't want to say you grow apart, but obviously everyone gets busy with their own things, so you don't get to that day-to-day necessarily interaction, but you can still go do cool things and stuff. So it was fun to grow up in a big family, and we all thankfully like the same baseball team, and we're able to share a lot of incredible experiences with one another, go see some incredible games, and build a lot of memories.
It sounds like chaos to me. But what does your family think about your YouTube channel? Do they watch you? How do they feel about all that?
I think that's a time-to-time thing. I don't think we have any of them that watch all the time, but I think they've probably all at some point watched a few videos. I actually have a few other channels that aren't really too active anymore, so I think they probably watch some of them a little bit. My brother Steve, we've done a lot of videos, like agricultural stuff and things like that. He'll like watch those, but you know, they don't think it's too ridiculous, other than the fact that I collect an absurd amount of cards. But it's interesting. I mean, I've been with my dad down at like the Phillies game, and I had a couple kids come up to me and be like, "Hey, you might go," and he just laughs. He thinks it's funny.
No way. That's awesome, actually. I was at a game the other day. Do you know who Zach Hampel is?
I do. I've seen him at Phillies games since I was a kid. He's been down there. He obviously, his popularity has
for sure
over the top. But yeah, I've been down at a few games that he's been at.
Apparently, I was at a game a couple of weeks ago. He was at the Rangers game, and I was at the same game. I didn't see him. We were totally different areas of the ballpark than where he was, but that was just kind of cool because I watch his stuff. I think it's interesting for sure. So I wonder if we have any of your family on tonight. Maybe not. We'll see if they comment. What's sad is
I think Ed Wesker Griffiths actually met my dad one time.
Okay.
I saw he just put a comment that he's hilarious. I don't even remember what that was. I think that was at the Phillies ALS Festival, and Ed was down there, and he needed a few cards or customs or something from me, so I met up with him, and I think my dad was telling him the story about how my dad will now and then he'll have like old autograph balls, and he has like this process of wrapping the ball up and then putting it in the sun to erase old signatures of guys who were just like, I think he had like 7 Antonio Fonseca baseballs that he got in some charity sale.
Okay.
And he's like wiping the signature to get him signed by someone else. I was like, I don't know if that ball's gonna last, but I forget. I think Ed got Jared Eichhoff's auto for him.
Okay. Sorry, I'm writing down questions. All right, next question. Do you have any secret talents? Like, is there anything you can do that we don't know about?
Probably not. I pretty much collect cards, make YouTube videos. I'm left-handed. Some people see me like throw a ball, and they're like, "Oh, you're lefty." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm used to being left-handed. Been that way my whole life."
I do
2-time
love.
best man.
What's that?
I don't know. It's not a talent. 2-time best man.
Okay. There you go.
Like, that's like a slight accomplishment. I'd like to get the Triple Crown, maybe make it a 3-time.
Get somebody else to let you be their best man. I'm already married, so you can't be my best man. Hey, what hobbies did you have growing up besides card collecting?
I mean, I've always been mostly sports focused, baseball. Yeah, I did the starting lineups for a long time. I was crazy into the starting lineup figures back in the day. But I did grow up on Ghostbusters, the original movie and the cartoon series, and I still keep up with that stuff. If I see stuff cheap, I'll certainly pick it up, but I don't really search it out anymore too much. But I always collected all those. So I had the toys when I was a kid, and then as I got a little older, I would pick them up sometimes at yard sales or flea markets, and then that stuff kind of dried up and got really expensive. But I would collect some of that stuff from time to time.
What was Ed was saying a question earlier about, like, have you not watched the new Ghostbusters movie, the 2016
no,
one?
Ed wants to be a troll. That movie was not good. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but like, they did virtually nothing right with that entire project, from production to execution to marketing. And so there's actually a video on my Ghostbuster channel, which is another one I don't really keep up with now, but I have a review video. And according to Ed, that's one of the all-time classic videos. So, and he especially loves my buddy's reaction that I did it with.
You have a Ghostbusters channel? What is the name of that channel?
It's just called Ghostbuster Mike. I just showed off some collection stuff. I have so much stuff I could show off that I never got around to. But yes, that is one of my channels. I probably haven't put up a video in like 6 months. But
so do you own a Proton pack?
I do not. So I don't like, I'm like into the old Ghostbuster stuff, and it's very nostalgic, but I do not dress up as a Ghostbuster and run around like the streets with a Proton pack. But I do have my old like plastic Proton packs from when I was a kid.
Okay.
And the old Firehouse. I have the original box. I have all that
cool stuff.
So that's, every now and then I take a look on eBay and I'm like, oh, I could sell that stuff and get a lot. I'm like, no, I can't do that. Oh, but I could buy a lot of cards with that. I'm going to keep it.
What about now? Do you have any other hobbies besides cards and YouTube?
Nothing too much in terms of collecting wise and stuff. Just, just kind of your typical stuff. Go see a movie now and then. I do go up north, up to the mountains quite a bit during the summertime and fall. Have a place up there, so that obviously starts requiring some maintenance. But thankfully here on the East Coast, it's still essentially winter time, so that's gotten delayed a little bit this year, I guess.
I know, right? Y'all have had a rough, March and April.
There was like one day where it was about 80 degrees, and then the next day it was literally like 38. And I was like, okay, I guess we're back to this.
Well, man, I am frantically writing a ton of questions that we're getting. Are you ready to move on to that kind of stuff? Are you cool with that?
Sure.
All right. This was a funny one. I didn't write down who wrote it. I apologize. But what do you think about getting a card that is slabbed, signed with a paint pen, like on the outside of the slab? What do you think about that?
I I saw someone post that comment lately, so I gotta apologize. If someone did post that on my channel, I'm like crazy behind on responding to comments. I personally don't think I would look to do that, but I'm sure it could look kind of cool if it was a really clean slab and then you could put a perfect fit sleeve over it. But me personally, I would probably just find another card, get it signed with a paint pen, and then get it encapsulated.
Yeah, because what do you really have signed? You have a slab that's signed. You don't really have a card that's signed. So it's kind of, that's an interesting question. Okay.
I mean, it could look okay because it could. I mean, I'm not. I think it could look almost like one of those acetate,
right?
Cards that someone makes. It could look neat. I'm not like discounting it. I'm just saying I personally wouldn't do that. I'm an on-card auto collector. I'm not a fan of sticker autos, and I generally don't like holders signed personally.
Well, speaking of stickers, we all know from watching your channel how much of a huge fan of Panini you are. And Snoop wants to know, if Panini ever got a Major League Baseball license, would you like Panini again?
I would probably throw up for a few days because that's been something that's been running through my mind like ever since. I mean, I don't know how many people watching now have read all the stories, but obviously I think most people know there's a chance Topps could get sold. I'm personally hoping that doesn't happen at all. If they do get sold, I would think that the leader in the pack for that, and there would be other companies in the bidding, but I think Panini would have a really strong chance, and I personally would not be a fan of that. Like Panini can make some nice stuff. Their flawless football is beautiful, but that stuff's like $1,200 a box for 10 cards.
Right.
So their low end stuff is really low end and not that nice in my opinion. And their mid end stuff is almost non-existent. And what is, I mean, honestly, they have products that come out with $200 and $300 boxes that come in sticker autos, which I think is completely unacceptable, personally. So I am not personally a fan of Panini, and I don't like some of the people who work there, so I'm just not a fan. Would I buy some of their stuff? Of course, because I'm going to still collect cards, but I would probably scale back considerably unless they stepped up their game.
Interesting. So I'm getting a whole bunch of questions about slabbing and things like that and getting cards graded. There are people that have a bunch of cards that are in good condition. They're wanting to know, should I get them graded? Where should I get them graded? What do you think of GMA as a grading service? So that's all kind of questions around getting cards slabbed. What are your thoughts about that in general? I know that's a lot I just threw at you, but...
I mean, I'm generally, and I think you're the same way, a PSA guy. I'm just pro PSA. I personally think they have the nicest looking slabs overall. I like the feel of them. I like the size of them. I like the look of them. And I trust their process in grading cards. And, I'd rather a company be a little more tough on a card than crazy lenient. Companies like GMA and the smaller companies, listen, if you just want to have slab cards in your collection, you can do it. Honestly, the cards are, the grading and slabbing fees are cheaper, but I don't see how you're saving money, because if you have a card worth, I don't know, a PSA 10 is worth $30, and a GMA 10 will probably go for like $12, $15, like they go considerably lower. So you're paying less money to get it graded, but if you do want to move it, like, you're not getting much of a return. Like, you're just getting your grading feedback probably. Beckett, I'm just not a huge fan of Beckett. I have some Beckett cards, and I think it's kind of neat to see the subgrades, but I still feel like they're a little lenient. I don't really put a lot of stock in their gem mints necessarily all the time, and I just don't like their holders. Are a little too pointy, bulky, heavy. SGC is obviously great looking for a lot of the vintage stuff and the pre-war stuff. I don't really love modern cards in there. I know a lot of people love SGC. I still find their holders to be a little wide and a little big personally.
Me too.
So that's my thought on the slabs itself. And honestly, for overall grading, I think, I don't think you can go wrong with SGC or PSA. Beckett, everyone says use modern. Well, here's the deal. and I know it from going to card shows and knowing some of the dealers. A lot of the dealers use Beckett because it's easier to get that 9.5 gem mint rather than a PSA 9, just so they can bump the price up a few bucks and sell it. So, I mean, if you like Beckett, that's fine, but I'm telling you, that's why a lot of the modern stuff is done. It's a little easier on modern cards, especially, to get that 9.5, even if it has, that 9 subgrade on something, just so they can move it out the door cheap. So that's just my personal thoughts on it. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion on the grading stuff.
What would you think about, I think, I'll throw out an opinion here and get your thoughts on it. So if you're going to start getting your cards flat, like let's say you're starting either from scratch or barely scratch, getting into vintage or even modern grading, to me, it's pick one. And I would pick one of the major three, right? Either PSA, SGC, or in this order, PSA, SGC, and Beckett. And I would say you need to pick one and stay consistent in your collection. Do you think that's a smart idea?
I think I would definitely stay consistent. And I think I would do a little research. I would maybe even buy a few cards that are slabbed, even if they're just cheaper ones, just to get that feel of the slab and see which slab itself you like. And then it depends. Are you buying for investment? Are you buying just for fun? Do you just like a holder? Because honestly, if you just like holders, like, you could probably go out and buy some magnetics or screw downs, honestly.
Right.
But, what do you want to do with your cards? What's the value? Obviously PSA, you, Ray from Philly, and so many others know that a lot of cards have actually gained value due to the set registries and the competitive nature of that. So that's something to consider with PSA. That's something PSA has, they're smoking the competition with the set registries. But yeah, I would probably have a focus and stay focused. I do have some SGC stuff, and I have some Beckett stuff, especially with the autograph authentication. Listen, if I find a card that's awesome, that's signed, and just because it's been authenticated and slabbed by one of those companies doesn't mean I won't pick it up. I just personally would prefer to have the PSA to keep it consistent with the remainder of my collection.
For sure. I got a great question from Christian Escobar, and I don't know what's more troubling. He says he's going to be 40 years old in 20 years, which means he's 20 now. His question is, what do you think the hobby will look like in 20 years? And then, let's see, in 20 years, I'll be 64. So I don't even want to think about what the hobby is going to look like in 20 years. But what do you think the hobby is going to look like in 20 years, Mike?
That is actually an interesting question. And it's actually something I kind of talked on a little bit in my last podcast. We didn't really get into great detail, but I kind of said, so you're seeing like a resurgence lately in like the mid 90s, late 90s, even some of the early 2000s in some cards. Some of it is because there's players back then that have rookie cards that people are realizing like, okay, this guy's not just a star player, an all-star player. This guy's a Hall of Famer. I want to invest in his cards. And some of it is that nostalgia feeling, people getting into some of the old school refractors, inserts, and you look at some of those prices, and at one point they were high, and then they kind of drifted off, and now they're really coming back, and some of them are outrageous. So I was kind of wondering that myself, like, all this stuff now, we're getting a little tired, at least some of the modern collectors, of the ridiculous number of 1-of-1s and numbered to 5s and 10s and 20. Like, who cares anymore? There's 1,000 cards numbered to 25.
Right.
It's probably way more than 1,000. But at some point, those cards are going to be in collections. Some of them will get lost over time. So what is going to happen with that stuff in 20 years when some of these players now are being inducted into the Hall of Fame and stuff? So I think that's interesting, and where, the actual modern products go from there. I mean, who knows? I mean, technology is always changing, and I know people bring up digital cards, which, I don't think digital cards will ever take over. I think they're an aspect of the hobby that some people may or may not be into, but I think people who like to collect physical goods. So
I agree.
It'll certainly be interesting to see how things do change, and licenses and all kinds of stuff can change.
One last question, and then we'll move on to everybody's favorite part of the night, which is the rapid fire. But what was your favorite hobby moment as a kid?
Oh, man. I think the one that popped into my head right away kind of goes back to football. And it's only, I want to say this is probably like 1996-ish. Motion Vision. I don't know if you remember Motion Vision cards. They only made them for a couple years. They had a football license. Someone else made a baseball card, but it was like Sports Flicks times like 1,000,000.
Right.
They're actually incredible looking cards. You hold them up to the light, it's basically like a 3-second video clip. Beautiful looking cards. So I was sick at one point, and I wasn't someone who stayed home from school much or anything like that. But I did stay home from school, and there was like a weekly card show, and I couldn't go to that. And my dad stopped and bought a couple packs of that, and you got one card. They made like 20 different players, but there were inserts, one per box. It just had like a back to it. And then one in like, I don't even know, 15 boxes had an autograph. So I think he bought like 3 packs, and the third and final pack I opened was actually Drew Bledsoe, and it was the insert and it was autographed, and that was like, what are the odds of getting that, and what are the odds of getting at that time my favorite player growing up football wise? So that was certainly an incredible pull, and that was definitely a great moment for specific moments.
That's really cool. I did get one other question that I think is worth addressing. It's from All Time Greats, and his question is, if you're going to get started sending cards in for PSA DNA, and you and I both have a ton of them, right? So would you think, if you're starting blue or red flip, which way would you go and why?
I mean, I certainly like the red flip better. I like having the card details, and I think it's a shame that PSA DNA doesn't do that now. So if I can afford it, I'm going with the red flip service. I personally still get most of my cards done in blue flip because I'm just personally looking to get the autographs authenticated and having them slabbed. And I don't think it makes a huge difference in value. It can, if you go with the grading of the autograph, that can certainly enhance it a bit. But for me, like, as a buyer, I'm just looking for the authentication and the peace of mind personally. So
yeah, I
like the red flip. So at this point, I will get select cards done red, and I'll get the majority of mine done in blue.
See, unfortunately, the registry is either red flip side or blue flip side. And if you don't know that, you need to know that you can't just have a mixture and them all show up in one database. There's literally 2 different databases. There's a blue flip database and a red flip database. And it doesn't matter if the card's autographed or not. If it's on a red flip, it's going to be in one, and if it's on a blue flip, it's going to be in the other. And what's interesting about that, if I was going to tell someone if I could go back and do it all over and they had the same services that they have now, I would go red flip. But I'm already so deep into blue flips and the registries and all the things that I'm doing that I can't change now. And it does suck that they now just put trading card or whatever. They don't put the details of the card because they're saying we're not authenticating that. Let's say you have a 1957 Topps Frank Robinson that's signed. They're not saying, hey, that's a real 1957 Topps. They don't want to. They don't want to give away for free the authentication of the card in addition to saying the autograph is real. You know what I mean, Mike? And so that's why they did that.
They will identify that it is a trading card because I've sent in
correct.
some
That's
custom
true.
cards, and they'll say like custom trading card or something like that.
That's true. But so there's our take on that, Mr. All-Time Greats. Great question. And now we're going to move on to the last portion of the evening, and that is rapid fire. Mike, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I am.
Okay. So answer as quick as you can, and I may leave room for comment for myself. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Well, you're probably going to hate this answer, but if I'm buying a pizza, I'm buying plain because I like just the original plain pizza. I'm not a huge toppings guy, but I will say a pizza place by me, they do have a chicken parm pizza, which is incredible, but it's really hard to eat more than one slice.
I bet that fills you up in a hurry.
Yes. one slice and you're like, oh, thank God I didn't buy more than this.
So you're just a cheese guy. Like, just give me a cheese pizza, right?
I just like the plain cheese pizza. I've never been into the pepperoni and sausage and all that stuff.
Okay. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Generally speaking, it would be mint chocolate chip, but it can change depending on the place, but in general, I love the mint chocolate chip.
I do too. And pretty much my answer would be any. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Any and all.
Yeah, I would say it's hard to go wrong with much of that, unless you get some weird seasonal stuff, I guess. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy bubblegum ice cream, but, you know.
So are you a Geno's or a Pat's guy?
If I have my choice of those two, I personally like Geno's more. I think they put the cheese on top of, so they'll put it right there between the roll and the meat, so it kind of just blends together a little better. People love Pat's, and hey, you're not going to go wrong with Pat's, but I go Geno's before Pat's, and there's also like 10 other places that are awesome. So if you go to Philadelphia, be planning to go on a diet or, you know, clog some arteries. You might want to eat healthy for a month before going and a month after.
On your hot dog, do you like mustard or ketchup?
Well, based on watching your show the previous few weeks, you will definitely not be happy because I definitely go ketchup over mustard. Generally, I go ketchup and relish.
Okay. On your coffee, do you drink coffee? First question.
Absolutely not. I think coffee is awful, and I think this country is overly obsessed with it, and my sister gets mad at me because I always blast her. I'm like, why are people obsessed with coffee? This stuff sucks.
Interesting. I just drank a cup of coffee before our show tonight, so I could stay awake.
I get that, like, people like it for that part, but I'm always like, I see people paying like $8 for Starbucks. I'm like,
you're crazy.
And people out here obsessed with Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, dude, they must put crack in that stuff. Like, there's no way people could be that addicted to this stuff.
Well, it is an acquired taste, I think, but once you get it,
I did not acquire it.
It's so I'm going to ask you this, and it's also a question from Pepino Man. Are you a good dancer?
I am not.
Not a good dancer.
And it seems to be with this community too, based on what I remember. It sounds like a lot of not just like knots or no's, it's like absolutely knots.
Are you going to the National?
I'm thinking about it, considering it, possibly. Should I? Is anyone else going?
There might be one or two of us going. I would only say you should go if Ray from Philly goes. You should.
I am definitely going, and hopefully there will be a crew there with me, but we'll see. I mean, I know there'll be a crew there. I just don't know how much of that crew's coming from the East Coast. But hopefully a few. That'd be awesome.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you there. That'll be fun. Favorite board game?
I was never crazy into the board games. Shit. Sorry for cursing on the show. I just realized I lost the Willie Stargell auction.
No way.
Hey, it actually went higher than I thought it did. I thought at first it went for like $30, and I was mildly upset. We'll live. So board games, I remember for some reason when we were kids, we had like something called Easy Money, which I think was basically a ripoff of Monopoly, and we had Monopoly as well, but for some reason we played Easy Money all the time. So I guess that would be the favorite board game. Outside of that, I have not played a board game in a while, other than some of those card games, like holiday things where someone breaks out one of those, I forget what they're even called, like apples to apples and stuff like that.
Right.
Those are kind of fun.
Favorite movie franchise? I think we've already established that. That's Ghostbusters.
So, I mean, I love Ghostbusters, so that was always, like, the first movie, I think most people would agree is, one of the classics. The second movie, I think, gets crapped on a little bit, but, I think it's a solid movie. But beyond that, it really went downhill, which we did touch on. So
right.
I think you could say that.
Okay.
Other than that, I like a lot of, solo, a lot of that stuff.
What's your favorite sport to play?
I would go with baseball. I mean, I grew up, I played baseball through grade school, basically. Football, I never played organized football. I'd play, 2-hand touch in the yard and stuff like that, get together with friends. So I could toss a football or a baseball. Then my elbow will hurt really bad after a short while.
What's your favorite sport to watch?
Well, it kind of goes seasonally, but overall at heart, it's definitely baseball.
Okay.
I love the Super Bowl and I love the World Series. The World Series is awesome that it, spreads out there for a full week. But, love them both. But the edge goes to baseball. That's the first love.
What was your first car?
1986 Chevy Blazer.
Okay, that's at least
Really
mildly
freaking,
cool.
really blue, and the inside was like some freaking, what was it, like some synthetic leather or something. And that stuff was burning hot in the summer and ice cold in the winter.
Nice. What was the last movie that you cried at?
Last movie I cried at? I can't think of one. And
That's
I'm sure
good.
the answer is supposed to be that you don't cry at any.
That's
I feel
right.
like I think I probably maybe got a little misty-eyed at some of the military things, some of the modern-day military movies. I'm sure that has happened, but as far as tears rolling down the cheeks, probably not.
You know, I cried at Lone Survivor. That movie was fantastic. So
I saw that. That was probably one.
well, Mike, dude, that is it. That's all we got time for tonight. That's the end of Rapid Fire, and I really...
Someone just said Ghostbusters 2016. I mean, I guess that could bring tears to your eyes. You watch that thing.
Good point. Well, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for watching, Mike. Any final thoughts for everybody as we sign off here?
Well, I appreciate all the support I've gotten. I congratulate you on, the accelerated rate your channel's been growing. I know you've been getting a lot of support. I encourage people to go to the National. I would say, listen, you don't have to go out there and spend big money. Last year, I honestly did not spend much money. I think I bought a hobby box and opened it, like on camera, and I bought a few $5 singles. I went last year, I had money with me, but I didn't spend. So you can go out. It's Cleveland. Hotels probably won't be too expensive.
Right.
If you can get the transportation down, you can go out there and just hang out and have a good time. You can go out there with a limited budget. So I encourage people to do stuff like go to the National, go to shows, and I encourage people to partake in this community that really is strong and really is fun, and there's a lot to learn, and there's people to meet and friendships to make, and I feel like you can really enhance the overall collecting,
the hobby itself, right?
The hobby itself. You can really enhance it by, I'm sure watching can be fun, but participating and making videos can be a real blast. And you don't have to get bogged down with it. You just do it when you can. Try and be semi-consistent. And I tell a lot of people, and you get a little bleep with it, but, if people give you a hard time, bleep them.
Right.
Who cares? I know it's easier said than done, but you eventually learn to just build up thick skin and just be like, dude, usually if you're ripping someone, you're usually too much of a bitch to make the thing and speak your own mind and put your face and thoughts and voice out there. So I definitely encourage people who are like on the fence to get out there and make videos.
Me too. Absolutely. That's a great thing to end with. Thanks, Mike, again for being here. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
You got it.
Next week, we got Pepino Man, none other than Caesar himself, will be on Beyond Cardboard. Thanks again, guys, for making this such a success. Thanks for being a part of it. Comments and likes, everything. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Keep collecting.